Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Thomas's Reading Room. We are on Trip Across the Pond, A Personal Vietnam Experience, the author Thomas Kipley DuGan. This is Chapter 10, and trip to the 196th Light Infantry, Monsoon, and the last days with the 9th. Midnight, and everyone was running around preparing to leave for the 196th base camp, located some 80 miles south of Saigon. We were going to participate with a few battalions from other divisions in Operation Junction City. We learned there were many North Viet Cong regiments getting together to kick our ass real good, so we were throwing in a few soldiers to make sure that we were the ones that kicked ass. I would be driving a deuce and a half, gathering a few toiletry items, some clothes, and the guitar that was beginning to take a beating from the intense heat and humidity. I walked to the motor pool to pick up the deuce and a half that was assigned to me. After checking out the deuce and a half to make sure it was in good condition, I drove it to the front of the battalion headquarters where other vehicles were forming a convoy. 1:30 in the morning, and we moved out. The night was pitch black, though it was not too difficult for me to stay on the road. One eye was trained on the small red light at the rear of the vehicle in front of me, and a few times we were given the okay to turn on the headlights. Although the top half of the headlights of all vehicles were painted yellow, there was still plenty of light. It seemed that the French had initiated the idea of having the top half of the headlights a yellow color. Although the convoy seemed to move at a slow pace, it seemed only a couple of hours had gone by when we began to observe the transformation from night to day. The sun began to make its debut from the horizon, making it difficult to see the vehicle in front of me. Sunglasses had been issued to us when we came over to Vietnam, though wearing sunglasses is something I never cared to do. I wondered how many people actually experienced the transformation from day to night and night to day. There was so much beauty to experience, and it seemed that thought had no place with it. As we traveled through a few villages, many children would stand at the side of the convoy and shout, "Chop chop, chop chop, GI, give chop chop." Some soldiers gave out cans of K and C rations. There was one boy holding a slingshot, and it caught my eye. The slingshot was made from a fork branch, and it had two pieces of red rubber going from each end of the fork to a leather pouch. About the only place where one could find original red rubber, as far as I knew, was China. When I was at a young age, I had seen red rubber and always thought that it was of a better quality. In any event, I wanted that slingshot. So holding two boxes of C rations, I shouted to the boy, "I'll give you these for that slingshot." The boy gave an expression like he had just hit a jackpot and said, "Okay." He ran alongside the deuce and a half, and we made what seemed more than a fair exchange. The boy seemed happy to give me the slingshot, and perhaps more so for receiving the food. Moving onward, we finally arrived at the 196th Light Infantry Brigade base camp around 10:30. We held up at one end of the camp until the next day, then we moved to the other end. The night before, it rained like I had never seen it rain in my entire life. We were walking in water up to our knees. Many buildings were flooded, including the mess hall that I later helped sweep the water out. It was the beginning of monsoon season, and it would rain much of the time during the season. Now, I could appreciate digging those many ditches back at Camp Bearcat. I was assigned the job of CQ permanently, and that was okay with me as it gave me time to do other things, plus it would keep me out of the rain much of the time. One evening, Lieutenant Vanderpool came by and wanted to know what I was doing. "I'm on permanent CQ, sir," I reported. "Is that all?" "Yes, sir." Lieutenant Vanderpool paused, then with a warm smile said, "Would you be interested in being my driver?" "I would like that, sir, very much so. I'll talk to the necessary people and see what I can do. Then I will get back with you." "Sounds okay with me, sir." "Okay, Thomas, I'll get back with you as soon as I can." "Thanks, sir," I said. As Lieutenant Vanderpool was leaving, he stopped, turned his head toward me, gave half of a smile, then he continued to go on his way. He was one hell of a soldier who liked to play the guitar and was good at doing so. There was one evening that I recall back at Camp Forsyth when we were out on an operation. Lieutenant Vanderpool had walked everywhere looking for me. He wanted to see if I would drive him somewhere and if I had my guitar. If I were not for the thirst to learn and see everything possible during the time I spent in Vietnam, I would be happy driving for Lieutenant Vanderpool permanently. It seemed for me there was an obsession to drive, and I gave off an energy that attracted officers somehow. A couple of days had passed and I was driving for Lieutenant Vanderpool. Of course, if there was a period that Lieutenant Vanderpool did not need my services, I would pull CQ. There was rain almost every evening the entire time we were at the base camp. I was dripping wet sometimes as much as 3 days in a row. However, the rain was not that cold of a rain, and in respect to the hot weather, it felt good except for the evenings. With a little time on my hands, the days seemed to have gone by slowly. I had a small pocket calendar that stayed with me from the time we arrived at Vietnam, and with an ink pen I would mark off the days as they were completed. 1/4 of my time had been served in Vietnam, with only 8 more months to go. It came time to leave the 196th and head back to Camp Bearcat, then who knows where. It was good driving the deuce and a half that I had driven to the 196th back to Camp Bearcat. We met the Vietnamese children again at the villages, and like before, we threw out cans of K&C rations to them. I did not see anyone with a slingshot. The trip going back to Camp Bearcat seemed much faster than the trip going to the 196th. Looking into the past, it seemed that going back was always better, faster. It rained at Camp Bearcat like the steady rains at the 196th, so we did not miss much. It seemed the ditches we had dug, the sandbags that the Vietnamese workers had filled, did their job well. The area looked to be in good shape. The weather was increasingly hotter and the humidity was getting worse. Even when sitting in the shade, I still perspired. Most of us ate sunflower seeds, and I used plenty of rubbing alcohol on our backs and legs to relax the muscles. We were told that we could have our shirt sleeves rolled up until 10 in the morning, then we would have to have them rolled down. The sun's rays would become too intense and damage our skin. Everyone had to wear briefs, and should they be caught without them, they would be subject to an Article 15. I don't recall anyone going around looking to see if everyone was wearing their briefs, although one soldier that was out in the jungle on an operation was caught without wearing them. There was much bullshit that went on, and I heard that a couple of soldiers were pissed at a captain. They threw a smoke grenade one evening into the tent where that captain stayed. Robert Kelly had told me about one of our soldiers that was out on an operation. It seemed that this soldier was part of an ambush patrol one day, and 2 Viet Cong came strolling down a path close to him. He attempted to fire at them with his M16 rifle, and the rifle jammed. Scared as hell, he jumped up from the foliage he was hiding in, threw his arms up waving them, then started yelling and screaming at the top of his lungs. The 2 Viet Cong looked at each other with a puzzled look, and one took off running. The soldier got a hold of the other one and damn near killed him by beating the hell out of him. The soldier received a Bronze Star for his bravery and an Article 15 for having a malfunctioned weapon. The Stars and Stripes newspaper had printed the story for the world to read. The first night back was spent with the soldiers in headquarters web talk. The next day, I went to the battalion headquarters to see if anyone had been transferred from the infusion list. The sergeant told me that many soldiers had already left. He advised me that when the time came, I would be going to the 4th Division, located somewhere by the Cambodian border, near a village named Dao Tiang. Meantime, there was guard duty and driving officers, though I did not escort the Vietnamese women home anymore. Much of my private time was spent with close friends such as Mike and Robert Kelly. Sergeant Major Graham did not have me drive for him too frequently. Occasionally thoughts went through the mind that I might get to go with him and Sergeant Terrell to the Special Field Forces, located in Long Binh. Driving for Sergeant Major Graham would be my job. After a few days, the word came down that a group of us would be leaving for Camp Rainier. We were assigned to the 3rd Battalion, 22nd Infantry, 4th Infantry Division. Later that day, Sergeant Major Graham and I met by chance off to the side of the road. I reported the news to him. I don't know who put you on the list. I'll have to find out about that. Anyway, I'll get in touch with you when I go to Special Field Forces. Okay, I will look forward to hearing from you, Sarge. We talked for a few more minutes, then I began to walk away. Sergeant Major Graham began to speak. You can't fool me. My wife is an Armenian. Turning my head and observing him, and for the moment there was that indescribable respect from one person to the other. A smile came over my face, and then I turned and walked on down the road. Sergeant Major Graham and I would never meet again, though he remained ever so close in the storehouse of my memory. Walking to the headquarters, Red Talk, I visited with a few close friends. There was no mention of leaving, as goodbyes was never for me. I was not built that way. On Friday, 6/67, dear Dad and Mom, received your letters the other day. It's good to hear from you. This reason I'm being transferred is because of rotation. You see, everybody can't leave for the States at the same time. And there would be nobody here when we left. So by rotating, there'll always be the right amount of people at the 9th Division. About 70% of the personnel in my battalion will be rotated. Already quite a large number have been rotated. So I hope that explains it. There is only one wrong I have done, and that's when I entered the Army. I'll be a mechanic there, but I'm putting in to be a driver. I love to drive. There is getting hotter in hell, and all hell should break loose come shortly. While playing hell with Hanoi, bursting the piss out of them, bombing them. My bases shooting down, I can't read, they're going out of sight. If Hanoi puts up with this much longer, they'll be ruined. They'll have to get more help from Russia and China, so take it from there. The newspapers and the news on TV aren't telling actually what's happening and are giving fake information on this conflict in Vietnam. Haven't heard from Dave come lately. It's a good idea on the bonds. Go ahead and cash them if you can. Do you have to have my signature on anything? I'll be stationed at a village called Dao Chiang. Look for it on the map. It's close to the Cambodian border. That's about it for now. We'll write later. Love, Tom. P.S. Put on the coffee bubbles. I'm coming home. Thanks, folks. That's it for this tour. We also had on the back of here, hi Dad and Mom, I'm at the 4th Division now. Don't have much time right now, but I want to get my new address out. Everything is fine, and I'll write tomorrow and give you the details here. I'll close for now. We'll write tomorrow and my address and love, Thomas. So our next chapter is Camp Rainier in the 4th Division. Tell your friends and come and read the best. Listen to the best. Thank you very much. Thanks for watching.